Hi Halloweenies, I'm Ozzy the Horror Cub. Take a trip with me to Camp Bloodbath because it's time to review the final girls. Let's get into it. Premiering in 2015 and directed by Todd Schultzen, this film is one of my top 5 favorite horror movies. Starring a great cast, you've got Adam Devine, Teresa Farmiga, Nina Dobrev, Alexander Ludwig, Alia Sakat from Arrested Development. This is a great cast. This is comedy gold. This is a comedy horror movie that knows what it is, and it throws all the punches to give you one great movie. If you love 80s horror movies, if you love horror movies that take place in a camp setting, so think about The Burning, think about Friday the 13th, Sleepaway Camp. This movie is a great homage to all those 80s slashers, and basically it takes us inside an 80s horror movie and how we would survive those consequences. As a horror movie fan, this movie is right up my alley. Number one, soundtrack is gonna get you because it has a great 80s horror soundtrack. It does sound like you're in a Friday the 13th movie, but it's done in this fun, campy sort of way that it's gimmicky, that you know, oh, you're watching a horror movie, but you're in a horror movie. If you've seen the movie, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But it also has a killer soundtrack of songs that actually do exist, not songs that were just made for the movie. So you've got Betty Davis Eyes. Betty Davis Eyes is one of my favorite songs. The way they utilize the song in the movie too, it's so sad. I mean, the cinematography in this movie is groundbreaking. The director does a fantastic job of grounding the story and making you feel like you're involved with these characters every step of the way. And I really do think that music plays a huge factor into that. So Betty Davis Eyes has a huge role in this film. It's very emotional, but then you also have a great song like Sweet Cherry Pie. They kill the comedy in this movie. I mean that in the best way possible. The comedy in this movie, if you're a horror fan and you understand the references and the nods of what they're trying to do, you are gonna think that this is hysterical. Especially Adam Devine, how he plays his role. Teresa Farmiga shines in this movie, sister of Vera Farmiga, and you're gonna know her from all the Conjuring movies, playing Lorraine Warren, also in Bates Motel, playing Norma Bates. So her sister has really taken on this new Scream Queen role. I mean, look at, she's in all the American Horror Stories pretty much. She was in The Nun, so she's really stepping into that horror landscape. Nina Dobrev is in this. If you've ever seen The Vampire Diaries, you'll know that she plays Elena. This actually kind of shocked me that she was in this movie the first time that I saw it. The second I saw this cast and you see all the all-star talent, you're like, wow, this is gonna be a great film. Teresa Farmiga plays Max Cartwright, and she's the lead of this entire movie. Now at the start, you learn that her mother was an 80s movie star. The only movie that she's really been known for was Camp Bloodbath. And she always tells her daughter, you know, if you're gonna be an actress, never be in a horror movie. Because that's the only thing that she's being recognized for at this point. And her name is Amanda Cartwright. Now Amanda doesn't have her life together. She's struggling right now. She's a struggling actress. She's trying to provide for Max. And that's when Betty Davis Eyes starts playing in their car. They're having a fun little sing session. It's this karaoke moment. Bam! Spoiler alert, if you haven't seen this movie, car crash happens, we lose her mom, we jump forward in time. 3 years later, it's the anniversary of her death, and Max is completely bejiggity at this point. She's struggling to really find out who she is. She misses her mother so great. It's the anniversary of the death, and Gertie, her best friend, is just trying to cheer her up. Now Gertie has a stepbrother, and the stepbrother is everything to me. His name is Duncan. Duncan is one of the managers at one of the multiplexes in town, and he wants to host a Camp Bloodbath marathon that night. But he wants Max to come and be a guest speaker, also just to be there, kind of give it some street cred that he got one of the main movie stars' kids there. She's really apprehensive to go, but she's failing all of her classes. So Duncan says, you know, I'm gonna do all of your assignments for you if you go. So the gang is all brought together and we are in the movie theater. What I love about Duncan so much is Duncan is really the Randy character from Scream. And he's all of us that love horror movies. So if you've ever seen this movie, you are gonna relate to Duncan if you love the horror movie genre. It's just like relating to Randy from Scream to the T. Every single word that he says in this movie just made me laugh because he gets the genre so well. He has such a high respect for 80s camp slashers. As they're watching the film though, chaos starts to ensue. A vodka bottle gets dislodged by somebody's hand. It starts rolling down the theater. The theater is absolutely packed, by the way, at this point. Someone's smoking a J in the theater. That combines with the vodka, the theater goes in flames. Everybody's trying to make a move to try and find the exit, but the exits are all blocked. They've got one escape, they find a machete that's been laying around, and they slash into the movie screen, and bam, our characters are now inside an 80s slasher movie. So if you've ever wondered what it was like to be inside a Friday the 13th movie or a sleepaway camp movie, this is it. This movie is a total homage to Camp Crystal Lake. Camp Bloodbath, Camp Crystal Lake. Billy is the lead psycho in this movie, and Jason Voorhees was the original psycho from Friday the 13th. They are really just paying homage to the slasher genre. This is a love letter to horror fans, and the comedy will just kill you every single time. But this movie also centers around the fact of how are they going to get out of this movie, because they don't really understand the rules of being in this film. The characters have to start to learn, you know, because we're in an 80s horror movie, do we have to play by the rules of the film? And at first they think that they can't die, and Duncan is trying to prove that theory, and that's why I love Duncan so much. He's convinced that all the characters that are running around in this film that were the actors at that one point, but now they're in the film, he's like, well, you know, it can't have blood running through their veins. It's got to be like, you know, be like corn syrup, something that they would have used in a movie. And he goes and tries the blood, and it's blood. That's one of the things that I absolutely love about this movie. It's the deconstruction of the horror genre. It's very much meta in the sense that Scream was, and this does it so cleverly. And you know, the other day I was just reviewing Fear Street, and I said that Fear Street was trying to be the new age Scream. But to me, the references that they were making were just so on your head. They were just trying to hit you over the head with a reference to a horror film that I don't think it worked. This movie, though, made in 2015, works so much better than any other movie. In order to get that Scream essence, this movie kind of understands that meta tongue-in-cheek that a horror movie needs to proceed with. If you're down for a horror comedy, this is going to be the end-all be-all for you. This is the end-all be-all for me because this movie has such heart. Because as they're thrust into this movie, Max gets to find her mother. And her mother in this movie is going under the name of Nancy. Now there's some great nods to other horror films, and it doesn't have to necessarily be the camp-based slasher, because you know, Nancy and Tina, the two girls that are in this movie that play the camp counselors, those are direct nods to A Nightmare on Elm Street. What I love about this movie is just the way it was filmed. Whether it be how they do the flashback sequences, and it looks like puddles are just raining from the ceiling, and then they flash back and everything's black and white, and there's one point that Alexander's character has to step over the actual font of Summer 1957. I just think there's so many great tongue-in-cheek moments. The way they explain the Billy origin story in this flashback is just hysterical, because as one of our lead characters is experiencing the flashback happening to her, Gertie's hysterical in this movie. She just straight up kills me. It's just the way she acts. Even her character in Arrested Development, she plays it so straight, but she plays it so... I'm here for it. I'm here for everything that she sells in this film. But there's a scene where Billy is going through and he's massacring as they're doing the flashback sequence to how Billy became Billy, and she's got blood all over her face, and then they flash back to present day in Camp Bloodbath, and all the camp counselors see the blood on her face and they just start freaking out. This is when chaos ensues, because Duncan tells us that in order for this movie to be finished, the final girl, Paula, has to slay Billy. So we think that Paula is our final girl, and the second that we meet Paula, she is just this badass in a leather jacket. You know, she's riding this fast car, and she's everything that we want to be. She is our final girl extraordinaire, so we really think that we have to stick with Paula to end this movie. But Paula dies because of that flashback. They all see Gertie covered in blood. They all scream. Her and Adam Devine take off in the car. We thought that Duncan was dead because he was killed by Billy. He comes out of nowhere. The car swerves, killing Paula. So now Paula, our final girl, is dead. It's at this point that the gang needs to uncover who their next final girl is, because they need to survive this horror movie. Obviously, it's going to be Max, played by Teresa Farmiga. She is just serving it through this film. They come up with a plan that they have to try and trap Billy. And the only way to really summon Billy is through a sexy dance. And this is where Tina shines. Tina is played by Angela Timber, and this sexy dance that she does to Sweet Cherry Pie will absolutely kill you. She's in a full-on life preserver, but she's just downed all of Nina Dobrev's Adderall, so she's completely hooked, and she's going a million miles per minute as she does this sexy striptease choreography, which is summoning Billy from the woods to the cabin. Now they've already devised a trap of how they're going to try and trap Billy, and they're going to set him on fire. None of it works. There's a great slow motion scene where Billy is just flying out of a window. There's just so much great cinematography in this movie. Then they do another flashback to go back in time to try and distract Billy. The lighting in this film is just going to get you, because when you get to the end and you're in this open field and there's this gorgeous church and the sky is lit with this lightning, and it's this neon light that's inside the air. It's like this purple, bluish tint, and how the characters are just running at each other with the machetes. this will get you. This is a great film. Whoever did the special effects for this movie, whoever did the gore, whoever understood the cinematography, this movie is a love letter to horror fans. So you gotta check this film out. Plan to Trap Billy doesn't go quite as planned, and everybody is slowly taken out one by one. It's only leading us to have Max, Chris, and Nancy left behind. This is where a real emotional connection happens because Nancy is not really her mom. However, Max is completely convinced that, you know, this is my mother, I have to protect her. If she could survive, she can make it to the end of the movie, even though she dies in the original Camp Bloodbath. If I could help her survive, she could be a final girl with me, and she could come out of this movie and she'll be alive with me. So it's a heartbreaking story at the end of the day where she has to come to terms with the only final girl that there is Teresa Farmiga, and the only way for her to really step into her power is for her to die. So she has to watch her mother die once again, and it's heartbreaking, and again, it's done to Bette Davis eyes. Just the way it was filmed, it was just great. Everything in this movie, there's a certain gravitas that just holds your interest, and you're really gonna just find this fun, flirty, and interesting. And the second that Max does take on the role of final girl, and if you don't know what a final girl is, it's the last girl in a horror movie standing. If you've seen Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon, they call it a survivor girl, but it's the last girl standing. Think Laurie Strode, think Nancy Thompson, think all those, Julie James, I know what you did last summer, all those great women that stand against their oppressor by taking their object, their phallic object, and prevailing the day by taking them down. So the credits literally start rolling on the screen, and she can see the credits, and they're thinking, wow, we got out of this film. We made it out alive, her and Chris. And that's when we realize that they're in a hospital, and bam, they made it to the sequel. Nothing is done yet. The horror is to continue. All of her friends are miraculously still alive, but bam, they're in Camp Bloodbath too, because Duncan was setting up the movie. It was supposed to be a double feature. I need to see a sequel to this film. Listen, if there's anybody watching this that has any power that can make a Final Girls Part 2 happen, we need to see this movie happen. Guys, this movie is a fun thrill ride. If you love 80s horror, if you love camp slashers, if you love Teresa Farmiga, give this movie a chance. You are gonna laugh, you are gonna cry. This movie is gonna give you everything. It's a great comedy, it's a great slasher. I think you guys are gonna love it. Oh, Halloweenies, that's all the time that we have left for today. Hit that subscribe notification bell to be notified about all of our upcoming videos. Don't forget to hit that like button, and I'll see you in the next one. Until next time, stay spooky.